Emma Frost is a fantastic action figure from Hasbro Marvel Legends series, but it comes up short in the articulation department. You can't move her head, you can't move her arms. She's a good figure, but she needs help. And who better to help than none other than Fleabag. That's right, Helena Shaw, Phoebe Waller-Bridges' character from Indiana Jones 5, is the perfect body donor for a fantastic Emma Frost custom. I'm robvonshoe, and this is the recipe to build the perfect Emma Frost with no paint and no sculpting. Plus, a bit of fun with the forbidden head swap. But more on that later. This is Speed Custom. Phoebe is a 1-to-1 match for color tone in the skin and clothing, and we are going to take the articulation from meh to top notch. So first up is disassembly. You're going to want to warm up the parts. I've got a hairdryer here, or the boil method works just as well. Warm everything up, and with a bit of pressure, you can pop off the arms and the upper torso. It's starting to look like a bit of a chop shop. And then going over to Emma here. Her cape is glued in the front, and there's a peg hole in the back. Basically means she can't move her arms at all, but this is just glued in, so with a bit of effort, it peels right off. So there we go, separated the cape. It does leave a bit of a blemish on the corset, but we can fix that later. The torso peg on both figures is almost identical, which is great because it doesn't really move. So, with some sandpaper, or an X-Acto, or a Dremel, I'm going to just come in here and slowly grind away the edge of the inner ring there. And what that's going to wind up doing is allowing that peg to move farther and deeper, allowing for a better ab crunch. Just testing this out here with the Helena torso on the Emma legs, and there we go. It's a perfect fit, an improved range of motion, and even though her torso looks a little long here, don't worry, we'll get to that in a sec. She's kind of rocking that 90s Lara Croft Tomb Raider look. We're halfway through the hardest step. The hardest step is getting this corset off of the old figure. It's made of rubber and glued onto the torso, so we are going to need to wind up separating that. Pro tip, get this warmed up first, again with a hairdryer or the boil method. Get an X-Acto blade just to cut through some of the glue parts and go slow. Take your time. This is extremely thin rubber here. One wrong cut and you're going to wind up slicing through it. But if you go slow and steady and take your time and keep warming it up to melt the glue just enough, eventually that's going to wind up popping off, sliding off. Just like that. Beautiful. Now if you really want to go ham, this would be the place to use some Milliput putty and some paint to patch up the holes in that corset. Or, to keep it simple, you don't need to do either of those things. Once we get the cape back in place, you won't even notice. But you see what I'm saying? It's super thin. But because it's super thin, and because of the rubbery material, it can slide onto the new torso without any hassle. Just push that up in there, it molds around the new form, pop back into place. Nice. Very, very nice. So now what we've done is we've added a double hinge neck for Emma and a wider range of movement at the midsection too, for some more dynamic movement. Next up, the arms. Helena has a more narrow sculpt as opposed to Emma, and while it's an aesthetic difference, what that's going to do for articulation is going to wind up allowing for a better crossover butterfly movement. Now the arm here is the hardest part to remove and disassemble from the old figure. So you're going to need a pair of pliers, wrap that up with a towel in case it has teeth so you don't warp the plastic. Wrap that around the arm, which at this point is still attached to the donor torso. Warm it up and pop it out. And it pops out fairly easily, and again, provided it's nice and toasty. The old Emma arms pop easily into the Helena torso, and the end result winds up being a bit of a McFarlane-esque design, where you've got an extra long peg, but because of that, it allows the arms to cross over for a bit of a butterfly action there. Nice. They shift up and down, forward and back, all while staying snug and fit inside the torso. Plus you pop the head back on, and the way that her hair is sculpted covers up any sort of gap between the arm and her chest. So it is coming together nice. And so far, no glue, no hassle. And I'm really liking how this is coming along so far. A better neck, a better diaphragm, and an awesome crossover. We're about 3/4 of the way done here. But the next thing I notice is how easily the Emma head pops off of the Fleabag torso. So, what we're going to do then is we're going to remove the barbell joint out of the old neck. That is going to just wind up popping off, pulling out. You can either just strong arm it freehand or take your pliers out again and that just yoinks right out. With a little push, it just pops right into the new neck. And because that ball joint is now the correct appropriate size, Emma's head pops right in, stays in place, and now she can look up and down and all around. Look at that. A female figure that can actually look and see her toes. And look to the stars without the hair getting in the way. You would think that this wouldn't be that difficult in retail already, but, you know, here we are. Now say you aren't a fan of the huge shoulder gap. The Indiana Jones Helena figure comes with a cup at the end of the arm, again akin to McFarlane figures. Now we can wind up popping off the old arm and slipping onto the new one, fit snugly and easily into the joint for a bit more of a visually appealing aesthetic. Now you can wind up painting this skin tone if you'd like, or if you keep it white it also works as shoulder straps for the costume. But it does wind up reducing the range of motion just a little bit. So, your call. I'm going to keep it on mine for right now, but when it's said and done, I think I prefer the cupless design. Very nice. So then that just wind up leaving her cape. Now you could use some stick tack and just try and tack it back on, but that doesn't work. Or you can spend $5 at Walmart for this shiny glitter cloth, trace the old cape, cut it out, and with a little bit of super glue here and here to keep it in place, just like that, you've got an on-brand, shiny, glittery cape for a figure that does not impede the articulation. Very solid. And there you go, with no paint, a little bit of time, and 2 figures that will be on clearance before you know it. You can take a pretty decent Emma figure and just crank it up to 11. No longer just a shelf statue. She can move as well as an expensive import for a fraction of the cost. We had talked about the forbidden head swap, but if you wanted to have a gala look for Helena Shaw, a simple head swap gets you your Fleabag Phoebe Waller-Bridge decked out to the nines. But there you go. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you got a custom in mind too, I'd love to hear about it. Until next time, everybody, this is Rob vs. Toys. Subscribe, and we'll see you next time.